Okay. Appreciate everybody coming in here. This could be the best place to be right now. It's raining a little bit out there. So Ryan Blaney has joined us, and Ryan is he's having a heck of a season. He's driving the number 21 Motorcraft Quick Lane Tire and Auto Center Ford, and certainly is one of the bright young stars in our sport. Ryan, talk about, we're about midway through the season in the Sprint Cup Series in particular, and you're certainly up there at the top as far as Sunoco Rookie of the Year. You've had a good season. The racing's been good. Seems like there's some good momentum now as we start the second half. Just talk about the racing as you have seen it, and then also how you are looking forward to the second half of the year, starting here this weekend at Kentucky.
Yeah, I think the racing has been really good. The new rule packages and everything NASCAR has been doing has been good for the sport, and I think you've seen it at Michigan and then this weekend with a little bit different rules package. I think it's a step in the right direction for sure. So the racing's been a lot of fun. It's been great to be at the racetrack every week with the Wood brothers, and it's actually hard to believe we're already halfway through the year, to be honest with you. It's gone by really fast, and I guess times fly when you're having fun. So it's just been a good year so far for us, and hopefully we can keep getting better and better for the second half of it.
Questions for Ryan Blaney. Let's start right here with Fred, and then we'll go to Mark, and then the front row.
Hi, Ryan. I'm Fred Calgill with the CBS affiliate in Louisville. First impressions of the repave, resurface, reconstruct, and just some thoughts about, in a situation like this, the peace of mind of knowing that in theory it's going to be a lot quicker getting it dry, and how that affects you as a driver knowing there won't be a long layoff.
Yeah, I thought the repave is different for sure. I had the opportunity to test here 3 or 4 weeks back, and was definitely different. You know, they changed the whole shape of turn 1 and 2. Gave it more banking and everything, and it's noticeable. And it took us a while for our teams to kind of get used to it, but I think you've seen it in practice. I saw it last night in the truck race that it did widen out a little bit, which surprised me, and it's a good thing. So that's very promising for the Xfinity race tonight and then the Cup race tomorrow. So I think it's coming in pretty good. I know Goodyear's done a good job of developing a tire for both series for the new surface. That's always a hard thing to do whenever you come to a new fast racetrack, and they also did a great job of building this. I don't know if you've seen that tire monster that they've been having. I think that's sped up the process a little bit of rubbering and racetracks. So they did a really good job on that deal. What was the other part of the question?
In terms of weather the way it is, knowing that
yeah.
days it was like 3 hours or more, now this might be, you're lucky when it stops less than an hour.
Yeah, it's you know, there's certain things that we like and don't like about repaves, but one good thing is that it dries very fast. You know, this was probably the hardest place to get dry, and even when we did get it dry, there was always wet spots on the racetrack that we couldn't help. And now it's going to be very fast to be able to dry this place. So that's the promising side of it. So we'll see. I'll get my stopwatch out whenever it stops raining and see how long it takes for it to dry.
Let's go to Mark, and then we'll go front row, and then we'll go to Claire.
Ryan, got a couple questions for you. Number one, given where you are right now in the points, how do you feel about, if you don't get a win, being able to point your way in?
You know, I don't really pay too much attention to the point situation. We go out and try to win every single race each weekend, and that's the mindset that we have. And the rest of it will figure itself out. You know, we just want to do the best job that we can, and if we perform like I know our team can perform and run up front every week and run top tens, and you know, that other part will take care of itself. But right now we're focused on going for wins, and you know, we're not going to be conservative. I want to go win races. I'm not going to back out of a situation where I think I can win a race just to points race right now. You know, I want to be aggressive and go try to win a race. So I don't really give that side too much thought.
And the follow-up to that is, it looks like, you know, potentially we could have 2 rookies in the chase, and a lot of folks wouldn't have figured that at the beginning of the year. How do you feel about the fact that both you and Chase could wind up in that final 16?
Yeah, that could be possible. Obviously, he's sitting really good right now. They've done a really good job all year, but that'd be great. That'd be really neat. I think it'd be awesome for the sport to have a couple rookies in it, and you know, some young guys. There's some other young drivers that could be in it. You know, Austin Dillon's sitting in a good spot, and Larson, he's starting to come back up to a spot. So that'd be really great if we could get some rookies and then some younger drivers too into the chase.
Let's go here to the front row, and then we'll go to Claire and then David Scott.
Second team's very fun stretch. You got your first Xfinity win here. You got your most recent Xfinity win here. You know, does that help you at all? It's you know, different cars, but how does that momentum help you anytime you come into this place?
It helps. You know, it helps self-confidence when you can come back to a racetrack where you've had success. Honestly, Kentucky's probably been my best racetrack. You know, now it's completely different, and the new racetrack and new surface and everything. It changes, but it's still the same Kentucky, and your same mindset coming back here of, hey, I've won here and have had good runs. It definitely helps you, you know, boost your confidence up a little bit, and then that helps your team too if the driver's confident. So it's just nice to come back here. This is a neat facility, and even though it's a little bit different, it's still, you know, the driver still has kind of its same mindset coming back.
Let's go to Claire B. Lang, then we'll go to David Scott, and then to Fluto, and then to Chris.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. I know yesterday a lot of the teams were scuffing tires and they didn't get a lot of time on the track. And then today, you know, we had the qualifying called, and some fans are tweeting, well, it's early, why call qualifying? Well, it's because you guys can then get more practice. How much do you trade out the qualifying for more practice? How much do you need the practice for today?
I think, you know, you said it right. A lot of teams scuffed tires yesterday. You know, we had 16 sets of tires that Goodyear suggested that we scuffed all of them. And, you know, with the testing that they've done, they thought that was the best part of getting them hot, letting them cool down, and then recover, just so we don't have any problems in the race. So we didn't get a ton of time kind of changing our car yesterday. We didn't change anything on our car today. How little practice we got. I think we scuffed 3 sets of tires, and it started raining. So that was unfortunate, which I think it's great that they're allowing us to get some more practice in. We needed it for multiple reasons. One, this new surface and the tires and the new rule package. You know, we're still kind of in the unknown about this new lower downforce package. So I was really upset that they canceled qualifying for practice last year, but I'm really happy they did it this year, mainly because we missed a race last year because they canceled qualifying. But I'm happy NASCAR made that decision. I think it's good, and I think that's what most teams wanted.
Go to David Scott, then Fluto, then Chris.
David Scott from the Charlotte Observer. Ryan, what's it been like this year running for an open team? Has it made any difference in how you view things beyond, I guess, qualifying when there's more than 40 cars in the field, and that's something else you got to worry about?
Being an open team and a non-charter team, that doesn't bother me one bit. I know there was a bunch of talk about it at the beginning of the year, and it was made a big deal. I don't see it affecting us at all. They do a great job, and it's kind of just a title that, you know, you kind of wish you had, but it hasn't hurt us yet, and I don't think it's going to hurt us in the near future. So it doesn't bother me one bit. I think we do a great job just how it is, and I don't really view us as a non-charter team or an open team or anything like that. I view us as a very top contending team that does a really good job.
Let's go to Fluto, and then Chris Knight.
Udo Shinzawa, Boston Globe. I'm wondering from your perspective, just with your team, and then you see the results and the success that Gibbs has had, what has that been like? What's your perspective when you see 4 cars that are just so powerful week in, week out, and what do you think has made them so robust this year?
No, they've done a good job. You saw them really improve the second part of last year, and they've definitely carried that momentum and success over to this year, and they've done a really good job of adapting to new rules packages. So they've been fast really everywhere we've gone, and really basically it's 5 cars you're running against over there with the 78, pretty much being a sister car to them. So they do a great job. They get a lot of support from their manufacturer, and we do too. So it's just a matter of putting our heads down and getting better, and I think we've done that. Our team and the Penske team over the past month, we've made big steps and big gains to be able to be closer to them and be able to beat those race cars. So, you know, props to that team for sure. They've done a good job, but I think, you know, this sport, it goes full circle. You know, you see teams rise up and be dominant for a little bit, and then another team comes up, and it's pretty funny to me watching it all the years that my dad was running, of which teams would be really good for months or years at a time, and then, you know, new teams or different teams find something that's really good, and then they surpass that team. So it just comes full circle, but the only thing that we can do is put our heads down and try to work hard at getting better and better, and I think we've made a big step in the past month to that.
Chris?
Chris Knight, catchfans.com. Ryan, some of the drivers that are running double duty, maybe even triple duty this weekend, said that they feel like they'll have an upper advantage tomorrow night, especially with weather conditions expected to be similar. Do you feel like that the extra track time will play into your hands tomorrow night, and especially since running the Xfinity race under the lights?
Yeah, I think so. I think the Xfinity race is going to be huge to run tonight, and I'm fortunate that I'll be able to run it. Thanks to everybody who let me participate in that. But it's going to be really big to get extra track time. Anytime we can go to a racetrack and run the Xfinity race or the truck race before the Cup race is huge. It's even more meaningful when we can do it on a newly paved surface. You just kind of figure out where the track goes, and the best thing is they start at pretty similar times. So we'll be able to compare a lot more notes from this race tonight over to tomorrow, and I think if we do it right, we can really learn a lot.
How was your tire wear yesterday and then today?
It was interesting, but we're on a different tire over there on the Xfinity side, and we run on the same tires the trucks over on the Xfinity side, and we got some notes from the BKR guys from their race last night, and they're really different tire feel wise, and we saw a little bit of blistering yesterday on the Xfinity cars if we made a long run, but the Cup stuff we haven't seen anything on, so I think we'll be fine as far as tire wear wise.
Any additional questions for Ryan Blaney? Well, Ryan, thanks for coming in, and good luck this weekend in Kentucky.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ryan. Kevin Harvick, he'll lead the field to green tomorrow night for the 6th annual Quaker State 400 presented by Advance Auto Parts here at Kentucky Speedway. And Kevin is our number one in owners points. He drives the number 4 Busch Lite Chevrolet for Stewart Haas Racing. And Kevin, we're kind of at the midpoint of the season. We've had some really good racing so far. You've had good success. Just talk about your outlook here at Kentucky Speedway this weekend, and then also maybe looking ahead as things start to really intensify before we set the chase field.
Well, I think this weekend is a little bit of an unknown. We spent 2 days here testing, and obviously we had to make some adjustments. Goodyear had to make some adjustments to the tires coming back to make them live. And I think as we've gone through practice, we haven't had any tire issues so far. But it changed a lot with the feel of the car and the things that you want in the car. So we've scrambled a little bit. I felt like we were better the second time out on the racetrack. I think hopefully being able to get some more practice will be beneficial, because we still don't really have a good idea of exactly where we need to be as far as balance and what's going to happen the longer you run the car. So, as far as the season, I feel like for us, we've overcome a lot. I feel like we've adjusted and adapted to making pit road better over the last couple weeks. We've had a lot of issues and things that have cropped up that we've been able to cover up with good finishes that we've kept building on. But I feel good about the performance of the race cars. I think they're performing well and allowing us to overcome those things with just speed and performance. I feel like we're cleaning a lot of things up as we go from week to week, and hopefully, we're ready as we get into the chase and have all those things, everything hitting on all cylinders. So I feel good about the performance and good about the progress that we've made with adjusting and adapting, and the things that we've been able to achieve have been okay, and hopefully we can keep making them better.
Questions for Kevin? We'll start here with Fred, and then we'll go to Tim. Fred and then Tim.
Hi, Kevin. I'm Fred Calgill with WLKY TV in Louisville. Some thoughts in general about the repave, and more specifically in a situation like this with the rain, knowing now in a best-case scenario you're out there in an hour versus before it was 3 hours or maybe even not at all.
Yeah, it definitely puts us in a little bit different box of we've been sitting up there for a couple hours just trying to figure out, the 4 or 5 things that you want to try. And then what happens after that, you put the pieces together and you make your best educated guess upon the things that you've tried, pace that you think the cars are going to run, and go from there. So, it's really not about how fast you run at this particular point. It's how much you can try and how many pieces of the puzzle you can insert into the equation of trying to come up with the solution when you get done with practice. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure that, we'll still get back out on the track, the way the storms keep popping up. So, you hope that you can get out there. I think those are, if we can get that hour of practice at that particular time, that's going to be the most realistic thing that we've had or have going forward, just because of the time and the conditions and things that we'll be dealing with tomorrow night. So that'll be very beneficial if we can get out there, and very important, I think, for everybody to try to understand exactly what we're dealing with.
Tim?
Tim Sullivan, Courier Journal. When you go to a new track or a track that's been repaved and you say there's a little bit of an unknown, do you find yourself experimenting or more cautious? What's the mindset?
Well, I think you're definitely cautious, just because you don't know where the limits are, and every time you go out, you push or move or see something that you hadn't done before, and you start gathering that notebook in your mind of how far you can push things, how far you can hang the car out, and how loose the balance can be or how tight it needs to be. So every time out, you're just, you're gathering more information for yourself to gain that confidence, because the hard part about repaves is, a lot of places you can go and be over-aggressive and, slide up out of the groove. You're over-aggressive here and you see what happens. You wind up knocking the side off the car into the fence. But I think that the thing that, I think deserves a lot of credit is for NASCAR and the folks here at Kentucky Speedway is, you watched that race last night and there was 2 grooves right off the bat for a new repave. That's pretty remarkable. And I think there was a lot of effort and a lot of collaboration between everybody, and I'm just proud that we were able to come to a racetrack. It's still very edgy. New paves will always be, but when you have racing that is capable of racing side by side, I mean, that's a really good sign. So I'm pretty happy about that. It's just a balance. Really, I don't think you're going to go through this weekend ever being 100% confident.
Let's go front row, and then we'll go to Jerry.
Zach Tansworthy front stretch. Your son Keelan's now 4 years old. So 4 years, 4 years ago versus today, how much has your racing life changed in your personal life, and how it's a big effect on anybody, but for you, in such a big spotlight, how has that changed your entire life?
It's changed my life a lot. I think just in how you think about and approach things, and just being able to share my job with him, even though I don't believe I've been home for any of on his actual birthday, any of the 4 years. It's still, I'm pretty fortunate to be able to take him and let him be a part of what I do for a living, and spend more time with him personally, and he can be around what I do. And it's not normal that you get to take your son to work, in most places that you work. So we're very fortunate to be able to do that and have them around more than, I think I'm around them more than most people that have a 9-to-5 job. So it's been a lot of fun, and definitely changed the direction of Delaney and I's life, and how we approach things and how you think about things and the things that you do. So it's been a game changer for us.
We'll go to Jerry and then Jeff.
Jerry Jordan, Performance Racing Network, Kicking the Tires. Kevin, obviously with what happened yesterday in Dallas, and last week we saw increase in security at Daytona. Do you think about security when you're at the track and bringing your family here with all of us here every week? Does that ever cross your mind, and how do you handle that type of situation?
Well, I think, with the current state of where things have happened, and I think as NASCAR and ISC, we've talked about security is the number one thing that we've talked about over the past month. So I think it's important to make sure that we're ahead of it, and trying to make sure that we do what we need to do, and not take for granted the environment that we're in. We just have to make sure that we're proactive in doing the things that we need to do, and I think everybody seems to be doing that, but it's definitely at the forefront of everybody's mind.
Let's go back to Jeff Gluck, and then we'll go to David Scott, and then Tucker.
From USA Today. Obviously, this has been a tough week news-wise in this country. There's a lot of things that are hard to watch going on. NASCAR obviously is entertainment, and even though you're here to be a competitor, you're also providing a distraction for people for a few hours. Do you think about that role at all in times like this, and how you guys are ultimately, if you put on a good show, you're giving people sort of a break from everything that's going on?
Well, you're definitely in a role to try to make people happy. It's not uncommon to see, pictures from mothers, fathers, grandparents, kids of their sisters, brothers, husbands, whatever the situation is, in the casket in your race gear. So, at that particular point, it's fairly obvious that you need to try to do the best you can to not take for granted what we do and realize exactly how much it means to a lot of people. This is definitely a distraction for a lot of people to get their minds off of things that have been affected or not affected or worried about something, and it's definitely something that we can play a big role in being positive impacts on a lot of people's lives. And you get it's a daily reminder of a situation, or somebody has cancer or just died, or people in the situation that we just had in Dallas with everybody worried and frightened about the things that are going on in their city, and all of a sudden for 4 hours you have something that can get their people their minds off of things, or something that you post on Twitter that whether it's a picture of something that we did or something of Keelan that makes somebody smile. We have the opportunity to have big impacts on people's lives, and every day you learn more and more about how much of an impact you have, and sometimes you can get so buried into what you're doing, but we're so fortunate to be sitting here doing what we're doing in this environment, and then you see all the real world things that are happening around you, and sometimes it's easy to forget that you're pretty lucky to be sitting in the position that you're in. So yeah, you think about it a lot.
Let's go to David, and then we'll go to Tucker, and then back row.
Charlotte Observer. Kevin, we got 2 rookies this year who might well make the chase. What have you seen in those 2 guys, Chase Elliott and Ryan Blaney, and just the depth of the class also with Scott and Busch also?
Yeah, I think those 2 have definitely shown great competitiveness. They've been very successful in the divisions that they've won in and run in before, which is what sets them apart from most of the other people that move up. There's not a lot of them that have won a lot of races and championships. There's very few of those people that move up into this division. So, I think Austin Dillon was probably the last one to do that, and the talent's there, but it's hard to win in Cup, and I think Kyle Larson's going to be a star in our sport, and he just has to break over that hump of not having won before, and that's really what happens when you come in. You see those younger guys do really good, and then the pressure keeps building. The more you don't win, the pressure just keeps building on, when are you going to win? Why haven't you won? You build all this hype around the young guys, and then they don't win, and it almost shuts them down at the end of the first year and into the second year. So those guys have a lot of capability, but the further that we go into the year, the more they'll be judged by not having won than they will off of how bright their future actually is. But they're gonna be stars.
Let's go to Tucker, and then we'll go to back row.
Tucker White, SpeedwayMedia.com. Kevin, the 2 races we've had this year with the lower downforce package have been tracks with more smoother surface. Now,
We've only had 1.
Well, now the point. That's beside the point. But anyway, in order to get in the interest of getting a quote-unquote representative sample, would it be in the best interests of the drivers or NASCAR to add 1 more race with the lower downforce package at a track with a more abrasive surface, like, say, Darlington?
I don't think so. I think the abrasive surfaces are going to put on good races no matter how big the spoiler is. That's just bottom line. The cars they already slide around. So you take the spoiler off of it, they're going to slide around more, and you're still going to have the same fall off. So, I think a lot of it is intended to, especially for this particular race with a new surface, I think to have the low downforce on it accomplished exactly what everybody wanted to accomplish as far as corner speeds at Michigan and the throttle off time. Obviously I think there's some big adjustments that we can still make as far as aero balance and tires and getting the car balanced right. But Atlanta and Darlington, those types of racetracks, they're always going to have good races, no matter how big the spoiler is. We've had, I don't even remember how big the first spoiler was. I think it was 7 or 8 inches tall in 2014. cars felt pretty much just like they did this year with however tall this spoiler is, 3.5 inches. So those races are always going to be good.
Let's go back row. Go ahead.
Ken Spencer, WHAS 11. Kevin, this place always kind of hung its hat on being the roughest track on the circuit, the bumps, the bumps, the bumps. How much different is it without all those bumps? How much different does it feel in the car?
It feels great, to tell you the truth. My neck doesn't hurt and it doesn't pound your heels and your neck to the point where you can't hardly walk for 2 days. So, you know, I think that everybody loves the character in the racetrack, but when you see them dry, this particular racetrack, now that the drainage is fixed and all the things that were actually wrong, I don't think anybody minds bumps and character in the racetrack. It's just, you know, when we sat here for hours last year with water running out of the racetrack, that was just, I think, the final straw that broke the camel's back, that you had to go out and fix it and make it right. So I like the thought process. I really enjoyed watching the truck race last night, because of the fact that turn 3 is obviously the really hard corner, and you can get off the corner, but the trucks that would lose space, they would draft up, and they could hold it pretty much wide open through 1 and 2, and they'd draft back, and you know, this end of the corner, the entry speed is so much slower than somewhere like a Kansas or somewhere else that has a asphalt like this. But they would build that speed back up through the corner and charge down into turn 3, and it was really hard to it's hard to make that corner the same every time, because our cars are very loose into there, and some of those trucks looked a little bit tight on the exit last night because they could carry more speed. But I think it made it interesting compared to what we had before. We had 2 somewhat similar ends, but turn 3's such a hard corner, and now that you're flying off in there so much faster, it's definitely much different. So I enjoyed the race last night and thought that was a new characteristic that we hadn't seen before here.
Let's go back to Tim.
Feet. How common is that experience that you had here in other tracks?
This one was probably by far the worst. You know, you have different problems at different tracks, but these were jarring. You know, it was because of the fact that they were down the straightaway, and the car would actually almost come off the ground in certain spots and bounce around, and it was just jarring type hits that were almost jumps.
Any other questions? We'll go to Mark Garrow, finish up here.
Kevin, can you talk a little, Mark Garrow, PR, and can you talk a little bit about next week's race at New Hampshire and just the characteristics of that racetrack? They talk about being Martinsville on steroids and that kind of thing. Just how do you attack that place?
Well, I think the interesting part is seeing what the difference is in the tires. It sounds like they're coming back with a softer tire that should have hopefully more tire wear. That makes the cars have more fall off. So it sounded like that was the direction that we're going for next week. I like going to Loudon. I think it's a very challenging racetrack. I like the flat tracks. We should have won the last race by a long ways up there, and just had a faulty fuel filler and missed it with 3 laps to go there. So it's always been a very good racetrack for us, and looking forward to going back. I love going to that part of the country this time of year when it's hot everywhere else, and it can be hot up there, but 85 is usually, everybody feels like they're about to melt up there, and it's just a nice part of the country to go to this time of year and be able to race. So a lot of race fans up there, and just one of my favorite stops every year.
Kevin, thank you very much. Good luck this weekend at Kentucky Speedway. Okay, Brad Keselowski, Command Performance here in the Media Center at Kentucky Speedway. Brad drives the number 2 Miller Lite Ford for Team Penske. And Brad, I know you were in here yesterday, but you've been out on the track. You've covered some laps on this new repave here at Kentucky Speedway. Certainly, I'm sure you saw the truck race last night, and just what's your thoughts about maybe some of the nuances here of the track and how you think it's going to play out for the rest of the weekend?
Yeah, well, it's not much has changed since I was here yesterday, but I would say that I've been on track with the Cup cars and with the new aero package and all those things, and it's been a bit of a joy to drive. The cars are challenging to drive like we thought they would be and like we hoped they would be. And the mid-quarter speed is way down. The straightaway speed is way up. So that's a bit of a handful. But the good kind of handful that I think really challenges drivers to push it to the limits. And my team's working on still maxing out the setup. We're of course highly anticipating the final practice session, which hopefully will come up here in the next hour or so, or whenever this rain blows out of here, and we can kind of finish dialing in our car. It's had decent speed so far, but maybe not exactly where we want to be. But we've got a little more time to work on it, so we're going to go do just that. Happy, of course, to be starting up front. You always want to earn it on the track during that weekend, but there is some sense of having earned it over the course of a season with points and so forth and the success you've had on track. So, either way, it feels good to be starting up front. Hopefully we can keep it up there all weekend long.
Take some questions for Brad. Raise your hand. We'll start with this young lady right here.
Emily Spink with Popular Speed. Brad, you've won here in the past, of course, on the old track. How do you approach tonight and tomorrow night on the new track? And also, how do you think Penske's been performing as a whole so far this season?
Well, I would say the approach is to take all the Kentucky notes and run them through the shredder and start from scratch, because what's worked here in the past isn't even close to what is going to work here this weekend, and that's been pretty obvious before we got on the track, and then of course kind of a confirmation once we did get on the track. So, I think with this package being similar to Michigan and the repave kind of maybe more closely aligning this track to Michigan, a lot of what we're doing is going off of those notes and what's worked for us there, and so far that's been helpful for us. We had a lot of success with both Penske cars at Michigan. Joey, my teammate, won. I finished fourth, and both of us were, I thought, very, very competitive. So, I think that Team Penske as a whole is as strong as it's ever been, and I think we're in a great position here to have a very strong stretch of races that hopefully we can finish up with in Homestead and get a championship.
Let's go to Jeff Gluck, and then we'll go to front row.
Jeff Gluck from USA Today. Brad, there's been a lot of bad news this week. Every time you turn on the TV, it's been a tough week for the country. You guys are going to go out and provide somewhat of a distraction for people tomorrow night. How conscious are you of your role in sort of that part of the entertainment aspect of everything that goes on here?
Yeah, I think it's a balancing act. You don't want to be, maybe the right term is unworldly and ignore what's going on. Of course, we all want to know what's going on, and I'm as curious as anyone else. But I also understand that a lot of the attraction that our fans have to this sport and any sport is to help them get out of those moments or get out of that mental space. So, I think for me, I try to balance that with trying to be cognizant on my own, but also understanding that in some ways I am an entertainer as a race car driver, and a lot of the role I think that I serve in the community with what I do is to help brighten people's day and make them smile. So those topics don't really, of course, achieve that. And so there's maybe a fuzzy line, but certainly a balancing act between being conscientious of what's going on, but also conscientious of the position that we have as a sport in society.
Let's go to the front row right here. Go ahead.
Zach Tansberry, Fun Stretch. I have two questions. I take it you watched the truck race last night, and Daniel Hemrick came once again really close. Looked like he may have gotten it. Were you happy that he raced clean, or were you maybe hoping he was going to push maybe a little bit harder to get that first win?
Yeah, I thought he did a great job. He was right there. Just didn't quite work out for him. But we're just knocking on the door. And, if you knock on the door in this sport, success will come. I think the interesting thing about Daniel is he's one of those guys that I think will be a better cup racer than he is a truck racer, just with his style, his technique, his demeanor, his, enthusiasm and thoughtful approach. And sometimes, we look at the truck series and the Xfinity series and we compare them to maybe the collegiate level sports. And if I was to do that, I would say Daniel's one of those guys that reminds me of like a Tom Brady. He might not have the glorious college numbers or collegiate numbers, but he's the type of guy that has amazing potential at the cup level. And, making moves that he's making and doing the things that he's doing show to me that he's capable of being an elite level guy at the top of the sport. And sometimes that doesn't always get a lot of highlights or a lot of praise in the second and third tier of this sport. But I see that in him, and I'm really proud of him.
And describe this part of the season. You go from road courses to plate tracks, now back to the ovals. Is it a part of the circuit that you look forward to, or does the difficulty maybe outweigh the reward for you?
It's a difficult part of the season, but an enjoyable part. I think some of the difficulty is, like you said, it's a wide variety of tracks, track types, track surfaces, challenges. It's obviously the heat of summer, the hottest part of summer, and so you look at that. That's another part of the challenge. But I think it's one of our strongest sections, and that gives me a lot of enthusiasm going into it.
Let's go to Gary Graves, and then we'll go to Tim, and then we'll go to Kent.
Gary Graves, AP. With the talk or the concern about tires, what is your impression right now about the compound that's being used and how it's adapting to the changes?
For the Cup Series?
Yes.
I think the Cup Series is in a great position. The tire change seems to have been not only warranted but very successful. We haven't seen any issues as of now. Of course, that can always change throughout a weekend. But I anticipate it will only get better. One of the key things is this rules package, the less downforce, has been very, very helpful to reducing tire issues because the mid-corner speeds are down. It's interesting going back and forth between the Xfinity car where the mid-corner speed is almost 10 mile an hour higher than the Cup car, and the Xfinity cars are just killing the tires. So from an Xfinity perspective, I would say I'm very nervous about the race tonight and what you're going to see, and would expect a lot of failures of tires. But for the Cup race, I think so far the signs have been very positive.
Let's go to Tim, and then we'll go to Kent.
Two-part question, Brad, right here. If you've shredded your notes or about to on Kentucky, how long does it take you to develop confidence and a comfort level at a new or repaved track? And the second part, Kevin Harvick was in here earlier and talked about the physical toll of the old track here, the bumps and all that. Did you have that same experience?
Yeah, the racetrack was certainly more physical before with dealing with the bumps, but I didn't think it was terribly out of line with the expectations I have of myself as a race car driver. Quite honestly, I thought there were some other places that were probably much more challenging, but to each his own. The challenge now is, I think, a little bit more mental because the groove is so narrow on a repaved track that you have to be perfect, and not just perfect by yourself, but perfect in traffic. The first lap of practice here, I went to pass a slower car, and I gave him too much room. I dipped a right side tire just slightly out of the groove, and the car took off, and I lightly brushed the wall. I think that's a perfect example of how mentally demanding a repaved track is, and maybe exchange for physical demand of where it was before. Maybe that's what he was alluding to or what you're alluding to. But I would say that it takes time, of course, to get comfortable with the track. It's a moving target. One of the interesting things about a track once it's been repaved is even just sitting like it has right now for an hour or so with the rain and so forth, the track is going to change dramatically, more so than tracks that have had pavement around for a while. It seems like the oils really seep up, and you go back out there and the track is incredibly slick, and you lose all your confidence. Everything you've worked on doesn't work anymore. So there's a constant cycle of confidence where you gain it and lose it, gain it and lose it, and a very taxing mental demand to tracks that have been repaved. Hopefully this track will see the surface age a bit quicker than what we've seen in a lot of the other repaves. There's been a handful of tracks, I would say maybe Pocono, Homestead, and a few others that I might have left out that have used an aggregate in their asphalt where the track has aged very quickly and has kind of hit a sweet spot to where I think the racing has been phenomenal. And the groove has widened out, and the track is predictable. And I think that's been key to seeing those tracks come together. Time will tell if Kentucky will be one of those tracks. So hopefully that'll be the case, and when that happens, we'll build confidence, and the racing will get even better.
Let's go back to Kent, Then we'll go to Claire B. We've got several here. That'd be good. Go ahead, Brad. You got them going here.
Kent Spencer, WHAS 11. Brett, talk a little bit about, the fact that you have rain today. I thought a lot of people were wondering how many racing grooves there would be on Saturday night. Does the fact that we got a lot of rain today, does that change things for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely will make the groove narrower. It's kind of a shame because I know the track and Goodyear put a lot of work into bringing out the tire monster, whatever that machine is called, to widen out the groove, which I think was certainly a great first step. Unfortunately, the tire that's on the race car this weekend itself isn't really helping by laying down rubber that we would need to keep seeing that grow wider and wider. So when the rain comes, it's going to make the groove narrower. It's going to wash out a lot of the work that the track has done a great job of putting in. So it is what it is. We all deal with the same thing, and we'll get through it.
Let's go to Claire B. Then we'll go to Mark, and then Jeff Gluck.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. I know you and Kevin Harvick have started around each other before, but being the summer and July, I think about the Busch Lite Chevrolet and the Miller Lite Ford and the beer wars, right? And the competition that comes with the fans of those two beers, putting it up on there for their driver. How strong are the beer wars now, and how much do you feel like that plays into it a little bit?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've thought about it actually quite a bit over the time. I've had the privilege of working with Miller and Miller Coors, and it seems like the beer wars are maybe not as confrontational as they once were, and there tends to be a lot of crossover fans between the two, which I think is great. But I know that our fans really appreciate that those brands are a part of the sport. And it draws a direct lineage, I think, to their lifestyles and to see, those brands in there. And that's kind of, they're fans of our sport and they like what that stands for. And I feel like it's critical to have those brands in there and that they feed off each other. There is always going to be some bit of a rivalry, but it certainly seems to be less contentious maybe than in times past. And there's almost a little bit of camaraderie, I feel, over it, to be quite honest, that there are two cars like that in here. So I think it's a good thing in general.
When you meet him, do you think, I need the Busch?
A little bit. It's not, not the first thing that comes to mind by any stretch of the imagination. What's interesting is, Miller won their first championship in 2012, and Budweiser, I know, has won a handful before. And despite that, there was an era there for at least, probably 15 or 20 years where neither one of them really had a championship. And, I think there was probably a period there where, since there was not that success, that the beer cars started to become maybe not thought of as a performance car to drive. And now we're seeing that change again, which I think is kind of cool.
We'll go to Mark Story, Jeff Gluck, and finish with David Scott.
Hey, Brad, Mark Story, Lexington Herald Leader. Because the 2 and the 18 cars have been so good here, when you came here on the old track, throughout practice, were you always, check in, see where, how fast he was, and is all that out now, or are you still doing that little bit of that?
Yeah, I mean, Kyle's good, at a lot of tracks, and he, deserves the credit and acknowledgement, I think, here as well as most every other racetrack. So, I think I make it a point not to focus on one car at any racetrack. There's 40 cars in the field nowadays, and if you focus on beating one, you're probably going to finish 39th. And I would much rather finish first and focus on beating all of them. But certainly there is some due respect that Kyle deserves for his success, really, here and all other tracks.
We'll go to Jeff Gluck and finish with David Scott.
I got a question out of pure curiosity. So last week on the last restart there, the track was like covered in speedy dry, it looked like. I mean, it looked like you guys were driving through snow almost or something.
Yeah.
And, you guys at that point, there's nobody lifting whatsoever. Do you still have the same amount of grip when you go through a speedy dry patch like that? I mean, does the sensation in the car change at all?
Yeah, driving through speedy dry on those situations is never fun. Of course, we'd like to see it be cleaned all the way up. There's a balancing act of consideration to, running 15 minutes of yellow flag to get the track perfect versus, getting to green as quickly as possible and the track not being to its, fullest form. I think when it comes to speedway tracks, the cars tend to have more grip than other tracks and more capability. So there seems to be, I think, a lower threshold of what's acceptable in terms of the track being ready to go, and that's why you see those clouds at those types of tracks, in those situations at those type of tracks. But certainly it's not 100% what you would want to drive through, and the grip's not 100% there, but it's tolerable for me.
Final question, far left, David Scott.
David Scott from the Charlotte Observer. Can you see through all that speedy, right?
No, that's part of the challenge, right?
Okay. Another young guy's question. There are two rookies who look right now like they might be in the chase. How would you assess what Chase and Ryan Blaney have done this year?
Well, I think both of them are doing a great job. I look at the 24 car, and they've got great speed. Chase has done a great job. It seems like as rookies, a lot of times you get caught up in a lot of wrecks trying to find the limits. And I think Chase has done a great job of being competitive and being smart to run, a 500 or 400 mile race and be there at the end. So he deserves a lot of credit. Of course, that car is really fast. It's been one of the fastest cars here this year, and there's something to be said for that as well. And I look at my teammate Ryan Blaney, and he's doing exactly what he needs to do. He's right at the edge of being in the chase. Of course, we'd like to see him get a win, and that will come, I'm sure, sooner than later. But I look at him, and he's just running smart races. He's with the Wood brothers, who, of course, have the alliance with Penske, but they're still the Wood brothers, and they still only have one car, and there's some limitations that come with that. So a lot of respect for what Ryan's doing for that group, and he's really carried them to, I think, a whole nother level in terms of being a consistent competitor to have quality finishes, quality runs.
Brad, certainly thank you for coming in, taking your time out this afternoon, and good luck this weekend.
Thank you, Commander. Was this your last time? Was this my last time talking to you on this
It's up
stage?
to you. If you win, it won't be.
Okay.
It's all in your court, buddy.
I want an encore, so we'll finish off with that
All right.
after Victor Lane on
it's all
Saturday.
up
How
to
about
you,
that?
Brad. It's all
Okay.
up to you.
Thanks for your work here, Commander. If I
Thank
don't
you.
see you, I
Thank
plan
you.
on seeing you.
I hope so.
Okay.
Thanks.
Have a good one.
All right. Thanks, Brad.